Now, the definition, incremental analysis. When there are two alternatives, A and B, machine X and machine Y, internal rate of return analysis is performed, applied on the differences of the two cash flow, of the two alternatives, between the two alternatives. This is called incremental rate of return and denoted as delta IRR. Again, I'm repeating. Internal rate of return analysis is applied on the differences of the two alternatives. Differences. Question.
So there has to be two alternatives?
Yes, there has to be only two alternatives. If there's three alternatives, the way we do this is, your question is related to, it's a chapter 8 problem, all right? But when there's three, we can also do two comparisons. Let's say 1, 2, 3. I can compare 1 and 2. The best one could be compared with 3, so I can always make a comparison to find the best one, right? That's the topic of chapter 8. Now, on the differences, internal rate of return applies on the differences. So how to find the differences then? Right, there's A and B or X and Y alternatives. An incremental cash flow is calculated. Incremental cash flow. The higher initial cost alternative minus the lower initial cost alternative. This is how we find the increment, the difference in between two alternative options. In other words, lower initial cost alternative is deducted from the higher initial cost alternative. How? Remember in the previous case, which one is the lower initial cost? Which one is the higher initial cost? A is the lower initial cost. B is the high initial cost. Any problem? This is it, like the first and second high initial costs. Now continue the definition. For a given minimum attractive rate of return, right, for a given available interest rate in the market, I find the delta IRR, incremental rate of return on the differences, and compare it with the minimum attractive rate of return. If what I find, incremental rate of return, is greater than or equal to minimum attractive rate of return, then the higher initial cost is the option to select. Higher initial cost. If it is less than minimum attractive rate of return, then the lower initial cost is the option. Well, this is a kind of convention. The result is because we calculate the incremental rate of return based on the higher initial cost minus the lower initial cost. If it was reversed, then we would have reversed the results. But this is the convention. Keep trying doing this way, and then once you get like proficient, like skilled about that, then you can think of the other way. But once you do the increment first, like high initial cost minus low initial cost, and find the incremental rate of return accordingly, then greater than minimum attractive rate of return, choose high initial cost, less low initial cost. All right? Well, actually, yeah. Let's see it in an example. When an equipment is installed, all right, it will save $800 per year in cost. The equipment has an estimated useful life of 5 years and no salvage value. Right, initial 800 per year over 5 years, and it has 5-year useful life. Two suppliers are willing to install the equipment. So 2 suppliers adequately will install it. First one will provide the equipment in return for the 3 beginning of the year annual payments. Like they oblige us to pay year 0, year 1, year 2, 500 payment. The supplier 2 wants us to provide, like they will provide the equipment, and just now they want us to pay $1,345 just now. Now, both have different cash flow offers, right? And in either case, the output will be the same. A fixed output, that's going to be $800 per year saving, right? And in other words, that's a benefit. So there is 15% unimetric rate of return, which supplier should be selected. Now, you want to see the cash flow for both options? You don't want to? Well, I want to show it. Here it is. In both cases, we're going to receive 800 over 5 years, right? No problem. It's indicated in both cases. But supplier one wants us to pay now 500 at the end of year 1 and year 2 500. The other one just payments just now. Wants the payment just now. Now, we're going to apply the incremental rate of return for these two options, for these two cash flows. And remember, what was the rule? Higher initial cost option minus the lower initial cost option. Which one is the higher initial cost option? Supplier 2. Supplier 2 has the higher initial cost because this is higher. The rest we don't care for now. You know, we make the decision which one to deduct. So it's going to be supplier 2 minus supplier 1, right? Here it is. Incremental cash flow is supplier 2 minus supplier 1, which is 1345 minus 500, right? This is it. And this is 300, remember? 800 minus 300, that's 500. Any problem there?
So we get the absolute value of the first column. Because if you took a negative 1345 minus 500,
yeah,
would that be a negative 18? So you have to take absolute value.
It is no, it's negative. Remember, the parenthesis is negative.
Yeah.
And this is negative. Minus 500, that's positive, so it makes a negative 845, right? Well, some parenthesis is negative. Question, Rachel. This one, are you asking why did we get the 500 this? Well, see, this is 800. This is supplier 2 cash flow. Supplier 1 cash flow is 800 minus 500. That's 300, actually. What's net cash flow at year minus 300? Exactly. 800 minus 300, that's 800. Well, for the remaining years, the cash flow, the incremental cash flow, the difference is going to be 0. So this is incremental cash flow. There's no option like this, but this is incremental cash flow. Well, now critical point. What actually is the incremental rate of return analysis? Well, it is actually, incremental analysis actually assumes that we already invested in lower initial cost. See, supplier 1, as if we already invested in, we just selected supplier 1. And we're looking for actually, if it is desirable, if it is okay, to just shift from supplier 1 to supplier 2 and see if the difference cash flow, the rate of return for the difference cash flow is better than 15% unimetric rate of return. If this is better than 15%, if the rate of return for this difference cash flow, incremental cash flow, is better than 15%, then desirable. Then switch to supplier 2. If it is not better than 15%, it is not desirable to switch from supplier 1 to supplier 2. So keep with supplier 1. So that's the key. That is what actually we're doing. Since jumping from here to here provides us a cash flow and provides us internal rate of return better than 15%, then jump. If not better, then do not jump. Keep with supplier 1. Well, a question to you. Is this familiar? 841, 845, 500, 500. We just solved it 10 minutes ago, right? The rate of return for this cash flow. What was it? 12%, right? Remember, this was exactly what we've solved just 10 minutes ago. The incremental cash flow provides us the rate of return of 12%. That's the factor value 159 and 12% incremental rate of return. Now, if I increment from supplier 1 to supplier 2, and my incremental rate of return is 12%, is it desirable desirable jumping from supplier 1 to supplier 2? No, because it's less than 12%, less than 15% minimum attractive rate of return. Incremental rate of return is less than minimum attractive rate of return. So keep with the lower initial cost. Keep with the supplier 1. See, remember this rule. Incremental rate of return is less than minimum attractive rate of return. Choose the lower initial cost. So incremental analysis is actually assuming, again, I'm trying to explain it, assumes that we already invested, as if we already invested in the lower initial cost, and see if it makes sense, if it is desirable to jump to a higher initial cost alternative, and see the incremental rate of return in these two, and check it with the minimum attractive rate of return. Higher than minimum attractive rate of return, then high initial cost is good. Less than minimum attractive rate of return, then keep with the lower initial cost. Keep with the initial selection. That's the logic of the whole incremental rate of return technique method. Right. Another example.